Hey guys, welcome back to Gingerbread Aquatics with Andrew. Today we're going to be talking about feeding your fry, feeding your fish fry, caring for your fish fry, raising your fish fry, all those types of things. So if you guys are interested, stick around to this end of the video to get all the information that I have about how to properly do this, in my opinion. Some guy on the internet. But before we get into that and giving you those 6 things, I'd ask that you guys like this video and also subscribe to the channel, because subscribing and liking helps get this information out to more people, and more people can then also learn about this amazing hobby and how to actually breed fish, which is such a cool thing. So please do that really quickly, just right below. Cool. You guys did that? Wonderful. Alright, let's get into it. The first thing is the frequency of feeding. The second thing is the water quality. The third is the size of the tank. The fourth is the actual feed size. The fifth is the nutritional value of the feed. And the sixth thing is the grading of the fish, the grading of the fry. So let's get on into it and get into the first one. So the first one is feeding frequency. So with fry, you want to try to feed them as frequently as possible. For some people, that might mean 2 times a day, 3 times a day, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. The more you feed them, the smaller portions, not like normally feed them if you're only feeding them 1 time a day. But if you feed them 5, 6, 7 times a day, you're going to see your fish growing drastically different than if you were feeding them 2 or 3 times a day. Because the fish, as they're swimming around, they're going to be using and consuming and will appreciate and be able to better utilize food that is spread out over the course of the day rather than just in lump sums at the end of the day and at the beginning of the day. So they'll be able to better extract all the nutrients, proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, macrominerals, microminerals, vitamins, all of that stuff. They'll be able to better extract it from the feed that you're feeding them if it's spread out over a longer period of time and they have more time to digest these smaller amounts of food. So that's the first thing, is feeding frequently, as frequently as you possibly can. The second thing goes hand in hand with that, is that the more you feed, the greater risk that you have of deteriorating your water quality. So one way to very easily combat this is doing very frequent small water changes after you are done feeding. So I will usually go in every 2 days after I feed, just one of the times throughout the day, and I'll remove 25% of the water and top it off with fresh, brand new tap water. I also like having mulm building up in my fry tanks. I also like having snails in there, and I also like having live plants. All those things are going to be conducive to helping grow your fry as quickly as possible, and also act as a buffer against any mistakes that we make as fish keepers. So the snails will help us in terms of cleaning up the extra feed that we feed them that the fish don't consume. The plants will help by consuming the nitrates after the nitrogen cycle has broken down those ammonia ions. The mulm will act as a supplemental feeding area / living area for other microorganisms that the fish can go predate upon while you aren't feeding them. Something to consider: the more you feed, the more that you should be doing water changes to keep your water quality at a good level and adequate, so that your fish can grow as fast as they can with the amount of feed that you're feeding them. The third thing is a properly sized tank, which sort of seems odd, but the smaller the fish, the smaller the tank you want. You can better spot feed your fish in a smaller tank than compared to a large tank. Having 100 fry in a 10-gallon tank is going to be huge if they just hatched, whereas having 100 fry in a 1-gallon container would be a lot better, because you can actually feed them and the fish will be able to find that feed and not starve looking for that feed. So consider keeping them in as small as a container as possible, and this might take trial and error, unfortunately, as we are learning, and then working your way up to higher tanks in size as the fish grow, so that they can have greater areas to both dilute out their waste and greater areas for them to swim and to grow in. So the fourth thing to consider is properly sized feed. You could be feeding them the best feed in the world, but if that food is too large for them, they're not going to be able to consume it, or going to have a very difficult time consuming it. So make sure that you are getting properly sized feed for your size of fry. So the smaller the fry, the smaller the feed, obviously. So for my baby fry, Celestial Prodanio fry, I like feeding them infusoria, but I'm trying to see if I can do away with that. I feed them mainly Walter worms for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and slowly start integrating in a powdered food as well as a flake food that I am crushing up, so that I can start getting them onto a prepared diet and not relying upon live foods, and getting them those proteins and lipids and nutrients in terms of microminerals and macrominerals and vitamins that aren't necessarily going to be coming in on a live food like they would be in a formulated feed. So that works into the next thing, is that these fish are growing so fast that they want a lot of protein and they want a lot of fats. For instance, in trout fry, they have a fry diet that is 60% protein and 18-20% lipids, in comparison to the adult feed that is 45 to 50% protein and 12 to 16% lipids. So you're going to want to feed a higher protein diet for your fry, and then you can taper it down as they start getting older and they aren't growing as fast and they don't need all those nutrients that you'd be feeding them in a feed like that. And the last thing to consider, and I think is very important because you'll end up with very few fry if you don't do this, is grading your fry. What I mean by that is that as the fry get older and grow up, there are going to be some fry that are going to bolt ahead of the rest and start consuming a lot more food and start growing a lot faster. And there is a risk, and I had this happen to me with my Celestia Prodanios, that those fish will either be eating all the food or eating all the younger fry that you have in that tank. So grading them out, even if it's going in with a little tiny net and separating out the large ones from the small ones and separating them into their own individual containers, you'll see a drastically increased survival rate from all of your fish if you are grading them out so that there isn't any cannibalism happening in the tank. Like I said, if you guys enjoyed this video, please like it and consider subscribing. I hope you guys have a blessed day. See you guys.